So welcome. Thanks for joining us. This is a webinar about the Community Climate Action Fund. I am the mentor for Leitrim through the SEAI Sustainable Energy Communities Programme. We're running this with Sligo. The mentor for Sligo is Ken. He can't join us tonight, but if you ever want his contact details, let me know. So I'd like to welcome, let's just move on to the next slide. Karen Kennedy from Sligo County Council, Community Climate Action Officer, Mark Corrigan from Leitrim County Council, Community Climate Action Officer, who are going to talk about the Climate Action Fund. So before we start, just a little overview on the SEC, Sustainable Energy Communities. We mentor groups across the border and west. What is a sustainable energy community? It's a group of people who aim to be as energy as efficient as possible, using renewable energy where feasible and adopting smart energy solutions. So in Leitrim, we currently have 13, and there's a nice little map on SEAI, which I'll put in the chat if anyone's looking to find their local one. And in Sligo, we have 15. So again, I'll put that link in the chat if anyone's looking to join their local SEC. So I will hand you over to Mark now, who's going to get us started.
Perfect. Many thanks. And hello, everyone. I hope you're all keeping very well. Yes, so my name is Mark Corrigan. I'm the Community Climate Action Officer for Leitrim County Council. I suppose before we begin, I would just like to thank Paul for asking myself and Kieran here to present. So yeah, maybe we'll get started here with the first slide. Yeah, so folks, we'll give a wee bit of an overview here for the agenda for the presentation. We'll give an overview of the programme that's available. We'll give an overview of the fund, who would be eligible and who would not be eligible, the funding available, and the different project themes in which community groups can apply for. So yeah, next slide, Paul.
Sorry, Mark, there, just 2 seconds there. We're just having a little bit of technical issues. It's just, there we go.
Perfect, that's grand. So yes, folks, this is a very unique type of funding. This programme is to support small, large and rural urban communities to take climate to a local level. We all know that we have national targets to meet, so this is why this fund is in place to help community groups contribute towards the national target. So next slide, please, Paul. So yes, the Climate Action Fund. This is Strand 1. Strand 1 is to focus on building low-carbon communities. Leitrim County Council are very blessed to have a budget of 300,000 that needs to be spent amongst the community groups. Sligo County Council has a budget of 405,000 to be spent. Now, Strand 1A is slightly different. This is a shared island community climate action fund, and there's a budget there of 3 million. Now, this will be across border, so they will need to team up with someone in the north of Ireland to avail of this. And the 3 million is not per county, unfortunately. It is spread out amongst all of the island. So next slide, Paul, please. So a wee bit of an overview here, folks. It's open to all community groups. And as I say, this is a unique type of funding. It's 100% funding. With it being so unique, it will be very competitive. To date, in Leitrim County Council, we've got a lot of interest amongst the community groups. The fund itself must be spent on capital projects, so it's all capital expenditure. There is a pre-funding element available, and the projects must be delivered within the 18-month period. Next slide, Paul. Eligibility. The community groups meeting the following requirements are eligible to apply. So there must be a not-for-profit. It must be located within the local authority. The application itself must be submitted before the deadline. The groups must be registered with a PPN or connected with collectives such as the Wheel, Tidy Town, and they must show evidence of AGMs, constitutions, and minutes, etc. On the next slide, Paul. Furthermore, the project applied must be in line with the aim and the purpose of the funding as set out in the sections. Only one application can be made per organisation, and they can cover various themes which I'll mention in the next few slides. Community groups that are uneligible are private individuals, commercial undertakings, schools, national community, and environmental organisations. So here, folks, we can see a wee list of non-eligible projects. Unfortunately, this fund does not cover the likes of feasibility studies, business cases, or surveys. It won't cover the likes of training or travel expenses. It won't cover the likes of legal fees. And especially with the likes of myself having mortgages and loans, unfortunately, the fund won't cover that either. So it is all capital projects. So next slide, please, Paul. When applying, you'll have the opportunity to apply for 3 different scales. We have the small scale of up to €20,000, medium scale of 21 to 50,000, and the larger scale of 50 to 100,000, with 100,000 being the max amount. Now, when applying, the community groups or organisations will have to apply under the following 5 themes. They are energy, travel, food and waste, shopping and recycling, and climate environmental action. I'm going to give you now an example of projects that will fall under each of these themes. Next slide, Paul, please. So energy. The main purpose of this is for buildings to reduce their carbon footprint, to use less energy, and to avail of using renewable energy. So, for example, renewable energy technologies, the likes of solar PV, wind turbines, etc. A very popular one now at the moment is retrofitting. So as we all know, many of the community buildings are old. So this is a chance for them to upgrade and to future-proof their buildings with insulation, with triple glazed windows, etc. Another very popular one is the likes of the LED lighting. And again, EV charging points. So theme 2 is travel. So this, ladies and gents, is focused on reducing our energy or reducing our emissions. So example of different projects would be improving the likes of cycleways, cycle parking, safe or active travel routes, and EV charging points. Suppose this is a good chance, as we all know, especially within Leitrim, there isn't much EV charging. So we have a good number of groups, who are getting on board with the EV charging. So theme 3 is food and waste. This is a chance now to help reduce food waste and to promote the likes of locally grown source food and food security. So again, to develop community gardens, get local businesses to work towards food pledges, food markets, and community composting facilities. Shopping and recycling. Projects of interest under this theme would increase the variety and number of recycling facilities and to help reducing, reusing and recycling. So to help cut back in the likes of single-use plastic, community repair hubs, swap shops, and another one that is sort of getting their attention amongst the community groups is water filling stations at some of their centres. Theme 5, please. Theme 5 is focused on local climate and environmental action. Projects that will fall under this would be the likes of mini forests, forest schools, community gardens, roof gardens, pollinator projects, and climate resilience projects. Now, for the next half of the presentation, I'd like to hand you over to Karen Kennedy from Sligo County Council.
Thank you very much, Mark. So just to, if you are interested as a community group in this programme, I think the first thing to do is discuss potential ideas with your community groups. So that's just to get the group motivated and behind the project first and foremost. Then contact Mark or myself as your Community Climate Action Officer to discuss your project. We're here to give you guidance on developing ideas for projects and also with the application process as well. So the application forms will be available both on Leitrim County Council and Sligo County Council's website, and we'll also circulate notices through the PPN regularly over the next couple of months as well, just to keep people informed. So on the next slide then, I just want to go through the application process, which is by an expression of interest form. So this form, when you come into it, if you're coming in online or if you're doing it by email, it has 5 sections. The first section is details of your organisation or your group, so who you are, what do you do, and where you're located, and also some contact details as well. Section 2 is information on the project, description of the proposed project, what are the costs, who are the contractors or companies that can help you to develop and finalise the project, and what are the wider climate and environmental benefits of the project as well for your community. Section 3 then deals with is a state aid questionnaire. Basically, this is to determine if the group's funding proposal would constitute state aid. And this is done by answering 3 questions, yes or no. Is this particular project, is it going to confer an advantage for those involved in economic activity, even if you're not for profit? Could it distort competition in the market, and could it affect EU trade? And if it's yes to all 3 of these questions, the de minimis state aid could apply to your group, and you would have to fill in a de minimis self-declaration, but we'll take you through that as part of the application. Section 4 then is authorisation and statutory consent. So as you know, before you go to do any project, you need to establish ownership of the building or lands where the project will take place, planning consents for the land or for any of the building works that are required as part of the project. And then the declaration, and this is really that the group understands what they've done and that all the information is correct, and they understand the terms and conditions as well as part of the application. So just then on the supporting documentation that's required as well as part of the application. Just go on to the next slide there, Paul, please. So as Mark mentioned earlier, it's important that there's governance arrangements in place as a community group. So to support that, we would need to see terms of reference, your constitution, AGM minutes, and also you'd need to give us numbers as well, like your charitable status number, tax reference number, public participation registration number, tax clearance access number, if they're relevant to you. On the partnership side, obviously, some community groups will enter into partnerships maybe with one, possibly more groups in their locality to help them to achieve completion of the project, and they might need other partners involved as well. So it'd be good to have letters of support from those partners if you're the lead organisation, but also how can they contribute to the project? What will they be doing as part of the implementation of a project? On the cost side then, quotes, there needs to be a minimum of 3 quotes for any of the materials, equipment and goods that are needed as part of the project. Also consents and permissions, so confirmation of ownership of the land or buildings, or that there's a minimum of a 5-year lease in place. Also, if you have any permissions that are needed as part of the project, whether they're planning or any other regulatory or rights of access. So they're all very important permissions that are needed as well. And then if the de minimis applies to you, there's a self-declaration form to fill in there. So we'll just go on then to the evaluation process then. So projects will be evaluated against the criteria here below, and the criteria are the relevance, so relevance to the overall program objectives. So that's really important, that first and foremost, all projects should be aiming to shape and build a low carbon sustainable community in a coherent way to contribute to national climate and energy targets. So projects should seek to achieve reasonable emission reductions, energy efficiency improvements, and build capacity within the local community on climate action and maximise community gain. Also, in the evaluation, the impact of the project will be looked at, the environmental impacts, as well as other, I suppose, local impacts. Innovation, is the project, is it practical? Is it innovative? Can it be scaled up in other communities? Can it be used as a demonstration? Is it good value for money? And the quotes will give information on this. Is there partners involved as well? And how are the partners going to support the project? And then the governance arrangements. Is there governance and financial systems in place? Is the group tax compliant? Has the group a track record in managing other grants as well in the past? So they would be the important things to consider when you're applying the application, that you're looking at some of these, the evaluation criteria as well, and you're able to answer some of these questions. So next slide there, Paul. So following on then from the evaluation by each of the local authorities, and each of the local authorities try to ensure, as is practical, that there is a variety of projects across the themes and to achieve the overall programme objectives, and then selected projects will be put forward to the Department for approval. And then the Minister for the Department of the Environment, Climate and Communications will decide what projects are approved and specific funding conditions attached. So it will be by summer next year before selected projects will be informed, and then projects will have 18 months then to carry out their activities from the date of approval. So just to give you an overview then of the next strand, which is strand 1A. Next slide, please. So strand 1A, community groups can also apply for strand 1 and strand 1A. Strand 1A is a shared island community climate action fund, and projects under this strand must have a clear north-south basis and demonstrate how the project contributes again to national climate and energy targets on the island of Ireland. So it's quite similar to strand 1 in the fact that it has the same 5 themes that Mark outlined earlier. But the lead organisation is located in this jurisdiction. So the lead organisation is the lead community group. So the lead community group must be located in Leitrim or Sligo, and then with at least one partner organisation in Northern Ireland. So that's really important. So there's a lot of scope in this fund, but again, we don't have a dedicated allocation per county. It's 3 million overall for the island of Ireland, but at least 50% of the award of the funding as well must go to the delivery of the project in Northern Ireland. So community groups here can apply for that for strand 1A as well as strand 1 under this particular fund. So just on next slide then, we'll just outline some of the specific areas that could be particularly suited to this fund. So projects which I suppose value networks for nature, green corridors, sustainable regenerative farming, just transition, peatland restoration, renewable energy, flood forecasting and coastal erosion. So there is quite a wide scope in strand 1A. So next slide there, please. So just then to conclude, we hope that the presentation has given you an insight to the Community Climate Action Fund and the application process. And if your community group is interested, both Mark and I would be delighted to hear from you. And please see our contact details there on the slide. And we would like to hear from you. And just thank you very much for your time this evening, and we will now open up the meeting for any questions you may have.
Yeah, thanks very much, Karen and Mark. And just for the questions, I'm going to stop the recording.